Hello, I'm Rebecca Flaherty and today we're going to be making this pattern in Procreate. This tutorial is an intermediate level one and I'll be using a template from this arts and crafts wallpaper set in my Etsy store. You can also follow along and make this pattern freehand and without the texture overlays if you don't have that set yet. If you're a regular here, feel free to use the timestamps to skip to the beginning of the tutorial, and if you're new here, then welcome to the Pattern Maker's Toolkit. If you've never made a diamond repeat pattern in Procreate before, then this tutorial will help you learn exactly how it works and covers the why as well as the how if you want to find out a bit more about that. So let's start by importing our canvas. I always import files from the gallery screen like this because dragging and dropping from the Files app in split screen can sometimes flatten the layers, especially if you're importing PSD files, so it's good practice to get into the habit of importing all your files into Procreate this way. Let's have a look at the layer structure of these. So in the top group here, we have our textures. You can't see them yet because the background is still white, but if we change the background color to something else and we zoom in here, you can see that beautiful wallpaper texture there. And that is a fully seamless texture, so you can export the finished pattern tile with that texture on there and you're not going to get any break in the texture. Let's just change the background back to white again now to use that while we're working. These textures don't have any effect on white, so any white parts in your pattern won't have this texture applied to them. Then we have this group here with all of our individual layers in it. We've got 3 groups in this one. The extra and the pattern groups will come to you later, and we're going to start working in our sketch folder. This is made up of our template here, and then above it, if I turn this one off, if you want to follow along and draw this freehand, you'll need to draw a guide like this that goes off the edges on all 4 sides of the canvas, and then you'll be able to follow along with us. Let's just turn this back on. These templates are designed to get you making a pattern right off the bat, so you can trace directly over the template and add your own flowers and leaf shapes. Once you get the hang of how they work, you can turn this template layer off and just use this as a guideline to make your own unique patterns. But for this tutorial, we want this layer turned on. So for this template, we just have to illustrate the parts in black and pink here on the edges, and the parts in blue are going to be made later by duplicating and transforming. So I'm going to start by stamping some floral shapes into these black circles. I'm going to use these shapes here from the brush set that comes with this canvas set. I'm going to start with this one here. On this draw here first layer, I'm going to stamp this shape in here, and then I'm going to use the select tool with the freehand to just draw around this and then move it into position. I'll turn snapping and magnetics off, and we can just resize this and make it fit inside this little circle here, making sure that it doesn't overlap with any of these leaves unless we want it to, of course. Then I'm going to duplicate this layer, tap transform, and I'm going to flip it horizontally, and then that's going to repeat it over there because most of the parts of this pattern are symmetrical. Then I can pinch those 2 together, and then I'm going to draw in the one in the middle, and this one isn't symmetrical, which is why I'm putting this one in second. So let's grab this one and put this one in the middle there. We can use the select tool to draw around that and just fine tune the positioning and size of that one. Because we have all the stem and leaf positions marked out on the template, we don't need to trace over those for our sketch layout. What we're going to do before we move on to the illustration is to perform our first offset and get these flowers into their exact positions on the sides here. So I'm going to duplicate this layer, tap transform, make sure you've got snapping and magnetics on and distance and velocity all the way up. Then we're going to drag this into each of the corners, checking that you have those orange lines there where it's snapped into place. And you can see this flower here is now filling this space up here. And then we're going to do that again, going up and across, snapping that there. Then duplicate the bottom one again, tap transform and snap it down and into this corner. And then duplicate one last time, tap transform, and snap it down into this corner until you have those orange lines there. Then these top 4 you can merge together, and I'm going to invert the colours on those so that we can see which ones are which. So when we do our illustrating, we just have to draw these black parts in the middle, the flowers inside the black circles, and these pink bits. So once you're at this stage and you know where all the different elements of your illustration will be, you're ready to start illustrating in the pattern group. So let's turn this layer on, open it up, and add a layer in here above this marker. There's two reasons I've got this hidden layer in there with the word pattern on it. Firstly, I make these templates in Photoshop, and any empty layers you have get deleted when you save it as a PSD and then open it in Procreate. So without having something in these groups wouldn't get saved, and I wouldn't be able to set it up as an empty canvas with all these groups in there for you. Second, if you have an empty layer at the bottom of your group, you can add new layers from the bottom up instead of having to add a new layer above and then dragging it underneath every time. We can always come down to this bottom layer and add something underneath. I know it's only a tiny detail, but I find that really helpful to be able to do that. So let's get rid of these and we'll start working on this layer here. So I'm going to start by drawing the outline for this flower in this dark brown colour here, and I'm going to use the drawing brush. Before I add any of these marks in, I'm going to add the yellow fill underneath just so we don't get any threshold issues filling in between the more narrow gaps later on. So let's set this layer as a reference layer. Tap on this and make it a reference. Then we're going to add a layer underneath. See how this comes in handy there? So now we can grab this yellow and then we're going to fill this. Make sure you have your threshold high enough so that you don't have any gaps around the edge. If I bring the threshold down quite low and zoom in, you can see you get a gap around the edge there. I'll undo that now and do that again and bring the threshold up high enough so that it's going past this line underneath. Something like that should be enough. And then you can tap continue filling, and if you're quick enough you can tap continue filling, and then we can fill in the rest of these like this. Then I'll add a layer underneath and do this in the lighter colour yellow. If you want to be able to recolour easily, then keep each colour on a separate layer. So I've got this one and this one on two separate layers. However, if you've got a lower layer limit on your iPad, you could do all of your fills on the same layer. No one's going to come and tell you off. So now I've got those filled, I'm actually just going to turn these off and then I'll add these bits on this brown layer again. Feel free to make your own marks in the middle here. Next we'll trace these side flowers and we can use the symmetrical drawing assist to speed things up here. Come up to your canvas actions, tap on drawing guide, turn that on and edit the drawing guide. Then tap on symmetry, options and make sure you've got vertical there and drawing assist on. Then you can tap done. And what that's going to do, anything we draw on this layer now is going to be mirrored over this side. So we can trace over these petals here and they'll be mirrored over there. Again, I'm going to stop before I add these details in because the lines are quite close together. So I'm going to draw a line along the bottom here to seal off these shapes. I'm going to go back to this layer here. I can turn that one back on so we can see it, and we'll fill in these before we do the line work on top. So let's grab this yellow. And then we need to do these ones as well because we didn't set drawing assist for this layer yet. So now we can turn this one off again and we can add the rest of those marks in. And these ones will be repeated over here because we do have drawing assist on this one. I'm going to turn this reference off now. Now on a new layer underneath, I'm going to trace in my stems and leaves. I want drawing assist on here, and you can make the leaves any shape you like, sticking within the boundaries of the leaf shapes, and the pattern will still fit together beautifully. If you want some more ideas for classic arts and crafts leaf shapes, just have a look through some of William Morris's designs. I'll put a link in the description for a page where you can find a ton of his work, which is now in the public domain, so you can be as inspired as you like by it, just like I was when I designed this whole set. These parts here need to be drawn above the petals, so I'll add a layer above here. And we'll turn drawing assist on for this one, and then I can draw these in. These ones I'm going to fill, but I'm going to leave the leaves unfilled for now, and you'll see why in a moment. On a layer above this, I'm going to add the detailing for the foliage now. So let's grab this blue here and my thinner brush, and on the leaves, let's make this one drawing assist too. I'm going to draw down here a line that comes just this side of the leaf stem there, and then just add these little lines going up here to the outline of where I've drawn. It doesn't have to be precise at all, but it's just useful to have those there as a guideline, which is why I've not filled in the leaf shapes yet. And then on these ones, I'm just going to add some detailing going up like that. Then I'll add another layer, make this one drawing assist, and I'm going to grab this green and put some going down the other side. And then on these parts, I'll just add some coming down from the top there. Then we can add a layer on the bottom. Tap on this one, make it a reference. This layer here, we can make drawing assist, and then we can fill the leaves in on this layer. And then you can see we get that nice stem shape there where we've used that line in the middle as a guide. I think I might go on this one and maybe just add a little bit down here as well. There we go. Next, I'll draw the stems here. I've got drawing assist on for this layer, but I'll turn that off to draw this last stem in the middle because this one isn't symmetrical. Then on a layer above, I'll draw in this leaf first, then I'll turn drawing assist on again and draw in the rest. Turn this reference layer off before you fill these. Now I'm going to add a layer above this and draw in the dark blue detailing on these leaves with drawing assist on. And for this, I'm using the same colour as I'll be using for the background. Then we need to turn drawing assist off so we can do this one. I'm also going to draw a line around the bottom of these leaves here. I like to use these little gaps as a gentle nod to the block printing techniques used to produce the original wallpapers. I'll also add a wavy one under the petals like this. You can also use this blue, the same colour as the background, to tidy up and define these leaf shapes if you want to. That's all of the illustrating done for our pattern groups, and next we can work on these edge motifs here that fall on the tile seam. Let's start by turning off the textures, swipe down with 3 fingers and copy all. Then we can turn on our extra group and tap on this, swipe down with 3 fingers again and tap paste. So now we've got a flattened copy of everything in there. Duplicate this layer, tap transform and snap half of it over to this edge here, and half of it over to this edge. Checking you've got that orange line down the edge there. And if we zoom into the middle here, you should see those are perfectly lined up as well. And then you know it's in exactly the right place. It's going to be useful to have this mark up here in the middle where it belongs as well. So I'm going to pinch those together, duplicate, tap transform and bring this up to the middle, halfway, and also a halfway across to the side here, like we did when we were performing the offset in the sketch layer. And you can see that brings that up there, so when we carry this line down we'll have a perfect guide there. So I'll do this again with the bottom one, snap it halfway up and halfway across, looking for those orange lines, and then we can pinch all of those 3 together, and then we've got this pink bit here to draw in on a layer above. Now we've got all of these lines in place, we'll be able to draw in exactly the right position and extend these lines down nice and smoothly. You can use drawing assist for these 2 and then turn it off for this one, or you can just draw them in freehand, which I think I'm going to do. Then add a layer above that and draw your leaf in. Then another layer and draw the details in. And if you want to add that separation in here, you can draw that on this layer too. Now all of the illustrating for this pattern is done, we can start to build out the tile. First of all, we need to put this extra bit back on the edges where it's supposed to be. So to do that, we're going to duplicate this whole group. If I close that, you can see what we're doing. So duplicate this group, then delete these 2, tap up here and flatten, and then bring that up out of your pattern layers group. Then we can turn our extra group off. This pattern group here, if you have enough layers, you can duplicate and flatten that whole thing and bring that up there. If you don't have enough layers, just turn everything off except for your pattern group, swipe down with 3 fingers, copy all, and then paste, and you'll end up with a flattened layer like this one, but you won't have to duplicate the group. So let's collapse this group down and hide our pattern folder now, and we've just got these 2 layers here. We've still got all the layers here to go back to, and this is why the diamond method is my favourite way of making patterns in Procreate, because everything is kept at full and perfect resolution, and you can keep all of your layers intact for edits at a later date. You can either work entirely in Procreate to build out the tile like we're going to be doing today, or at this point you can transfer to Photoshop or Affinity Photo to build out the tile, which is what I do in my normal workflow. But sticking in Procreate, we need to un-alpha lock this layer. We can hide that one for a moment. Let's get this back on the edges. So tap on this layer. Let's turn the drawing guide off now. And let's put a diagonal mark going off these 2 corners like that. Duplicate this layer. Tap transform, snap half of it over to this edge and the other half over to this edge. Pinch those 2 together, erase these marks there, and then turn this one on, and make sure that your extra group is on top of your pattern layer, otherwise you're gonna have this leaf under like that. It needs to be on top. Let's turn the background colour on and make it this blue colour now, and you can see all of those weird little marks that stick out there. They just blend perfectly into the background. So we can pinch these 2 together. Let's grab a light colour, let's put a mark in these corners, and then we're going to duplicate and transform this the same way we did in our sketch layer. I normally do this part in Photoshop or Affinity Photo using an automation to do all of this duplicating and transforming in just one step. There's a link in the description if you want to find out more about that. So let's just turn our textures on again, and that is our finished pattern tile. Before we export, it's a good idea to check there's no gaps or mistakes on the seam, so let's swipe down with 3 fingers and copy all. Come up to the top here, add a layer. I've got white as my colour, and I'm going to fill this layer. Swipe down with 3 fingers and paste. Then I'm going to grab this node and snap it to the middle of the canvas, and you'll see 1800 pixels there. Duplicate, transform, and snap it over to this edge, and then zoom in here to make sure your motifs are lining up there. Make sure there's nothing misaligned, and also that you don't have any white gap showing down there. Then you can pinch those together, duplicate, tap transform, and again just check along this edge here to make sure there's no gap and that all the motifs line up. And that is your finished wallpaper. We could even do that one more time, pinch those together and make this 1 step smaller to see it on a, I never know whether to say a larger scale or a small scale, because the scale is actually smaller, but it somehow feels larger because we can see more of it. So larger / smaller, however you want to word it. There we go, that is how this pattern is looking in repeat there. If you want to get your hands on this set of 6 floral arts and crafts canvases, you can find them in my Etsy store, and Pattern Makers Toolkit members get 10% off. Pattern Makers Toolkit is a bit like a Patreon group, except it's all free. I send out 1 and only 1 email per month with a freebie in there to help you on your pattern making journey, as well as early access links to some of my YouTube tutorials and full access to all the assets in the resource library. Plus, members get 10% off all the canvases and brushes in my Etsy store. New for 2025, the email also has a set of seasonal prompts each month for helping you plan, illustrate and upload in advance for the key shopping dates in your print-on-demand stores like Spoonflower. If you'd like to join, just click on the link up here or in the description. If you want to see more from me, you can find all of my in-depth classes on Skillshare, and if you're not already a member there, you can get 1 month free when you sign up with this link. One of my most popular classes is the one where I teach you how to export these finished patterns to Photoshop and build the pattern out for fast and easy editing or recoloring using smart objects, plus an automation to build the pattern out with just 1 click. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube for your weekly dose of pattern making fun.